First off, yes, the entire game is playable in VR. So you want to play Music Rally? You can play Music Rally in VR. If you watch my previous VR impressions of Horizon, I said that the social screen, to me, feels clearer than what you see in the headset. I still think that's the case for Horizon. But this one, I think it's actually maybe flipped. The image in this game's social screen looks a bit softer than the impression of the image I have in the headset. Plus, it's hard not to look at the pixelated peripheral areas when you're just looking at this on a flat screen. So sometimes you'll see even the HUD elements become very pixelated when I look in a different direction. But yeah, driving in VR is definitely very, very cool. It's the difference between having a flat screen in front of you versus a spherical screen that you're sitting inside of. And it's 3D. Quick tip, if you're just interested in seeing what it's like to be inside of a convertible car as quickly as possible, then just go to Music Rally, the first track, and you'll be in a convertible with the top down, which I feel like is the most watchable when you're watching other people play VR, because you're not just looking through a little windshield, you're looking like you can see everything. It's a great way to get into this experience very quickly without having to buy a car or anything. It's not all perfect though. I don't know all the technical details, but I think the game runs at a lower frame rate, 60 frames, and then that is sort of reprojected into the higher frame rate of the headset. And when you're playing, for the most part, you can't notice it that much unless you're doing certain things. For example, looking at the trees as you zoom past them. You'll see that there'll be like a double image of all the trees. And in fact, the first time I noticed was the driving markers. I would see a double image of them as I was going by. So any sort of stationary objects have a pretty strong looking ghost image. So that's not great. Unfortunately, I can't show the ghosting because it doesn't show up on the social screen, which is where all the captures come from. It only shows up because the headset needs that higher refresh. So it's happening somewhere between the TV output and the VR output. Again, I wouldn't say that it makes it unplayable. It's just not perfect. In some ways, though, it does feel like Gran Turismo 7 was always meant for VR, judging purely by the amount of detail that's in the cars, that there really isn't an easy way to access without the VR update. Which is weird, right? Especially the interiors of the cars. Without VR, you can't really look around at your surroundings as you're driving. I often find myself in the in-game dealership looking at the cars and thinking, oh, I wish I could get a closer look at these. And there just was not that convenient way to do that, to get up close and personal. There was the Escapes movies. And another thing you could do was, after a race, play the replay and then switch to the photo mode and then get really close to the cars like that. But for some reason, there just isn't, or there wasn't, a simple way to just look at the cars. Once you have the VR update, it adds the VR showroom. And you can just, it's one click. And you go in, and there you are. You're with the car. I think being able to look at the cars up close like this is my favorite aspect of the VR update. The pairing of Gran Turismo 7 and PSVR2 is good. I don't think it's quite great. I don't know how feasible any of these changes would be, or I guess additions. It's a sort of a wish list, but I could think of things that could make it better. For example, they've added a VR replay mode where it places you on the track during the replay as if you were a person standing there, and you can watch the race as the cars zoom by. Although it does a sort of weird teleporting thing. So it's sort of like the cinematic replays that they have at the end of every race, except it's just you, the VR person, and you just keep changing from viewpoint to viewpoint as the cars zoom by. So it's kind of cool, but also very strange. It would be neat if they implemented sort of this viewpoint where you're the passenger. I think that would be a very cool replay camera where you sit next to yourself who is driving in the race. My biggest gripe thus far playing the game in VR is how these pre-race intros just show up as flat 2D videos floating in the void. And then right as the driving part is about to start, you get popped into the car in VR. It's not noticeable when you watch someone else play it because you don't see the transition. It's not consistent. It doesn't actually happen before every event. Music Rally, notably for me, didn't have it, but when I was trying to do circuit experience sectors, every time I had to try again, it would pop to this 2D video and then pop me into VR just as I'm about to drive. So it's a bit jarring, and it would be nice if they figured out some way of keeping the player in VR as much as possible. So yeah, Gran Turismo 7 in VR, really cool, pretty good, but not a great VR package. Hopefully with the amount that they've updated it already, maybe they can add some of these suggestions down the line. For now though, I think that's it.